Hello. This is Jonathan, and you're listening to the Joney Talks podcast, the place where we help you achieve your financial goals. Hola, amigos. Hope you're having a great day wherever you are. And if you're a new listener to the show, special warm welcome to you. I really appreciate you tuning into the show. And if you're a returning listener, welcome back. I appreciate it even more. In today's episode, we will speak to a repeat guest, my friend Tanel, the CEO of Reinvest24. Reinvest24 is an Estonian real estate crowdfunding platform that has been on the market for a little over 3 years. I have used the platform myself for about a year now, and there hasn't been any issues so far. So pretty happy about it. Tanel will give us an update on the real estate crowdfunding space in Europe and how the platforms have performed during the last turbulent year. He will also provide us with an update on Reinvest24 and why they are now expanding to Spain and Moldova. This episode is for you if you're keen to invest in real estate crowdfunding and are ready to explore uncharted territories. So without further ado, let's hear the interview. Hello, Tanel. How are you doing? And welcome back to the show.
Hello, Jonathan. Nice to be back. I think I was here almost a year ago. And in the meantime, a lot has changed in the crowdfunding space and for Reinvest24 as well.
Okay, very good. And I'm excited to hear the developments. And nice to have you on as well. I think it was valuable last time. We talked about how to not being scammed by all the peer-to-peer platforms. I mean, at least in Europe, how to identify these. And now, of course, we're 1 year later, as you say. And I thought it would be good to have you on just to evaluate how the situation has been evolving since last year, what's been going on in the market. And as well, I think you have some updates to share on Reinvest24. So maybe let's start with the start. So how is it going in Estonia right now with the coronavirus situation, just in general?
Well, we are still on the lockdown period, similar to last year. It started in the middle of March and is planned to be finished by end of April. I think today the government is discussing to lighten the restrictions already this week. But in overall, the situation is totally different than it was last year, as there is no panic, there is no this uncertainty about what's the future going to be like. People understand this virus better now and understand also the impact that is having for the economy and so on. And of course, the vaccines are now in full speed. So I'd say the situation is a lot more calm, but the restrictions are pretty much similar as they were last year.
Okay. So it's a bit similar here. Still a bit stagnating on the number of cases in Luxembourg. Belgium is a bit going down, but it's still very fuzzy, let's say. But it's okay. Let's see how the vaccination progresses, and we'll see. Okay, good. And then, of course, how has the market been behaving in these last months? I mean, on the peer-to-peer front and crowd lending, what are your market views for what has happened?
Well, I would like to start actually with the real estate market, especially here in Thailand, which is like a totally different picture that we had last year in the time of lockdown.
Oh.
Actually, the real estate market, we had a short-term correction on the market since, there was uncertainty for the buyer side to just wait it out and see how things go. But the market picked up on the second part of 2020. And from there on, the transactions have been growing, the prices have been growing. And I would say that this lockdown is total opposite to the last year, as we actually saw in March 500 transactions more, which is like 20% more transactions than, it was basically the all-time high in regards to transactions. So people are right now like buying. And it's like, I don't know where it comes from. I think that it's those people that were like waiting for, let's say, last lockdown time or the COVID period that we had. They were kind of a waiting position, hoping for the market to go a bit lower so that they can buy. And they realized probably by the end of last year that it's not going to happen. And now like everyone is trying to just buy new developments are sold out before they are ready, and I can see that developers are more confident as well on the market, and there are new projects started everywhere in the city.
Okay, so Estonia is a positive and enthusiast. Okay, and do you observe a similar pattern in the neighbor countries or in Europe in general? I mean, what can you share here?
Well, yes, I would say that it's not that drastic in other areas. For some reason, Tallinn is like the hotspot right now. For some reason, it's hard to identify what is the actual cause of that. But the overall trend, I think, towards real estate at least, is you probably know what impact the COVID had for the world economy and monetary policies of the central banks. It's quite ridiculous, in my opinion, what's really happening. I mean, in Europe, it's the Central Bank of Europe is a bit more reasonable, rational, and thinking like what the future impact of just putting too much money supply out there can be. But if you look what's happening in the United States, for example, it's I don't really understand how this monetary policy is accepted there, and like what in the longer term perspective this can cause. Because just in last year, in 2020, the Federal Reserve in the United States, they printed more money. They put more dollars into circulation than in 2000 year. Just 20 years ago, the total supply of dollars were smaller than what was released last year, and and with the Biden, it's not stopping. They just had another round of stimulus checks. Almost $2 trillion were just created and added to the supply. So I mean, like this is something that's really favoring old asset class. I would say that real estate is in the front line for this. We see in United States and all over Europe that funds are moving a lot of their funds into farming land and just buying up land just to protect themselves from the upcoming inflation, which, in the United States, I wouldn't be surprised if it's even double digits.
Okay.
And, basically all the asset class, we can see the stock markets, even like some alternative new technology like the cryptocurrencies and so on.
Everything is booming, huh?
Everything is booming because people, I mean, this is not the retail investors who are buying up those assets. These are institutional investors. This is the smart money that understands the effects of, what the central banks are right now doing, what's their policies, and it doesn't seem to stop. There is, the program seems to continue. And, this is something that will have consequences and it will favor, all asset class pretty much. Real estate, in my opinion, is in the front line here.
Okay, we went a bit broad here, but then let's go back a bit to Europe and the real estate markets. I mean, at least in the peer-to-peer and crowdfunding space. You mentioned, okay, there's enthusiasm, there's kind of a recovery. So is that for commercial real estate or as well for residential real estate?
Residential is in the front line here. I mean, the commercial is a bit behind, but we're seeing the same trend. I would say it's about around 6 months behind, but we are seeing the same trend picking up with the commercial spaces as with what we saw with the residential properties here in Tallinn. And obviously the businesses are most affected with those lockdowns, and people are in most part are working from home still. So for businesses, there isn't that big of an urge, or they're not in a hurry compared to like the people who are looking to purchase their home. There isn't that urgency for them. They can hold and wait and see where the market goes and see maybe they can get better deals and so on. This is actually exactly what we have been doing as well here in Reinvest24. We haven't had any commercial real estate rental properties on the platform for that was added in last year, March, so 1 year. But we are going to publish today a commercial rental property on the platform.
And what about offices? This is a question I had because, of course, well, as you mentioned, we are all working from home, at least a significant part of the week. And maybe in the future, maybe this COVID has accelerated the trend for remote working. So what do you think about the office spaces? Will that go down? Is it still interesting to invest in those offices?
Yes, definitely. I think this is actually an opportunity right now. I don't see that. I mean, one-man companies and like small companies that are just getting started, it's probably reasonable for them to, not take any financial obligations in the early stages of
Mm-hmm.
the company development. But if we're talking about bigger companies with 100 employees, the cost of the office space compared to the 100 people salary is very small. And if you have the whole team together, it will be more proactive. I mean, it will be more efficient, the workflow. And I think also that, something that we've seen with like short-term rental properties in Estonia, since there is no tourism, there are actually some people renting them like a workspace, some micro
Oh,
apartments, just to, be out of their home environment and, focus more on the work, because there are, so many distractions at home, and you can do it for some period. But if this is the way it is, like long term, then, it's quite difficult, especially if you have kids and so on. So
yes, indeed.
I actually don't see that it's going to change the work culture. I rather see it as an opportunity right now, and the market will pick up, and it's actually a great time to enter the market.
Okay, very good. And has there been any, I mean, for the retail investors listening, has there been any changes in the offer of, I mean, providers, I mean, crowdlending platforms in Europe that we should be aware of? Or I think, for example, Reinvest24, in my view, it has stayed strong. It has been, I mean, you're expanding, we will talk about it later. So you have stayed strong. So to me, it has shown its resilience and strength in this, let's say, insecure market. While others, maybe there's been, okay, before even the COVID, there was already some shaky platforms. Do you have any stories here, or any things that we need to pay attention to here?
Yeah, I mean, like the last year was actually, I think in overall for the crowdfunding industry in Europe, it was actually a good year. I consider it as a like a purge,
Mm-hmm.
where all the platforms that didn't really manage the risks well were more of just giving out different kind of promises, like those buyback guarantees and so on, just as a marketing tool. And if you look at the investors on the market we had in, like, let's say 2019, then I've always been, Reinvest has always been like focusing on the risks. And this is something that we didn't start when the COVID started. We actually started when the platform was launched in 2018 May.
Mm-hmm.
Risks have always been our main focus. And because the first rule of retail investors should be not to lose their capital. You can chase those 25-30% yield proper projects, but if some of them will default and you lose your money, your overall earnings will be negative as well. But I think the overall the investors are more educated. I can
Mm-hmm.
see that they understand the risk better. They don't just go with the strategy that the more platforms I use, the more I invest, the more projects I have in my portfolio, the more diversification and less risks I have, which is actually can be false. They're rather, doing the research and, willing to put in some time also to understand where they're actually investing. Because like in 2019, the environment was very, very attractive for this kind of like scam platforms and so on, because they saw an opportunity there. People really didn't care or really didn't look into it. They were just chasing higher yields, and you can give them some promises that didn't really mean much, and people would just like go with it. But right now, the situation is totally different, and I can see that the platforms that somehow survived the COVID lockdown and the whole situation last year, but didn't manage the risk really well, or just offering very risky instruments for their investors and risky projects, they are in a pretty bad situation right now. And
Mm-hmm.
most likely there will be more cases of projects, platforms going in insolvency. I don't really think that there are the reasons are not the scams, but rather just the risk management and the projects that they actually offer to their investors. So the investors are more educated, and they're looking into risks more, and they are understanding the risks better. And this is something that we at Reinvest have always been promoting, and always trying to educate our investors. And it seems like all this work has been starting to pay off, and investors are getting more smarter.
Yeah, no, that's positive news. And then of course, let's go to Reinvest 24. So you guys are expanding. You're still rocking it, and you're expanding to Spain, Latvia, and Moldova.
Yep.
So, any other news that you have besides, before we go into the expansions? Any other new features or updates on your platform?
Yes. So one of the probably biggest things to mention here is the secondary market, which was launched at the end of the last year. We worked on it for quite some time, almost 2 years altogether, and it was delayed quite a lot. But we're extremely happy with the result. It's quite unique marketplace, similar to stock exchange, where you can sell your position partially. Let's say you have 1,000 shares of a property. You can basically have 100 different buyers that buy 10 each. So for bigger investors, it provides a lot more liquidity. And since we don't have any minimum investments on the secondary market, most of our projects pay out either interest or rental income monthly, but the amounts are too small to invest on the primary market, as there is €100 minimum there. A lot of that money goes to the secondary market, and also brings a lot of liquidity to the secondary market, so that the investors who need to exit will be able to do so. So this is probably the biggest thing to mention here. But there has been also some smaller features added to the platform. We're currently working on some as well. For example, property update log, like we are having right now, the quarter overviews where we update our investors in regards to all the properties. But we're going to, 1 quarter is just a bit too long period to get an update. Since there are new users coming to the platform who are buying those properties from the secondary market, and we want to give them full overview, that they're up to date about the whole situation with that certain property.
And how has your user base evolved the last year? Are you seeing double-digit growth in the number of users or investors?
Well, yes, I would say that together with our growth, we have also our financial situation is a lot better as well. So we have a bigger budget for marketing now, and we are focusing more on that. So that obviously brings more results to the platform as well in regards to the growth of new users. And we're basically having every month a new record for investments made, the investment volume per month. So everything is moving very well for us. But I would say that in overall, in the crowdfunding market, it's not fully recovered yet from the, at least the Baltic crowdfunding market has not fully recovered from the scam events that happened last year.
Yeah, sure.
So like people are a bit more cautious, and they're not just jumping into everything. So it's in that if we did the same things that we are doing right now in 2019, we would have I would multiply our result. But in the current times, I think we're doing pretty well considering the overall market situation.
Okay, very good. And then let's talk about these new markets that you're exploring, or actually already active, because I saw some deals already for Moldova. And so, you're looking at, Spain and Moldova and Latvia. So, what's going on there? Can you give us an update on the status? Because I didn't see any deals for Spain yet. Is that correct?
No, we actually have one project funded in Spain. We opened the branch in end of December last year. First property was listed then. It was funded in 2 months. It was quite big property. It's basically renovating a whole building and selling the apartments with a premium. But we currently have a property from Spain open for investments as well. It's our second project from Spain. I would say that the biggest benefits to invest into Spain market through Reinvest24 is that all the other platforms that offer you real estate investments into Spain, they are working with third-party developers.
Mm-hmm.
In Spain is pretty established market, and good projects and established developers have access to cheaper money there. So there is no good explanation why they should take the money from the crowdfunding platform with above 10% interest. With us, the situation is a bit different, as we are implementing those development projects ourselves. So these are basically similar projects like the rental projects we have, where our SPV purchased the property and rents it out. But in development case, the SPV purchased the property to, renovate the building or develop new buildings on it, and then sells it. As the investors are more involved and they also finance the purchase of that property or land plot, we are able to offer them higher yield as well. Our Spain projects are offering about 15% interest, which is something that you can't really find.
Okay, because it was one of my questions, because there's already some platforms there. So how do you differ yourself? Because as well, they may know the local contractors, they may know all the local regulations, which, okay, you can study it, but still they have all this kind of local network, which maybe you don't yet have. Or how does it work? Do you have Spanish people in Spain representing Reinvest24, or how does that work?
Yes, we actually have 2 employees in our Spanish branch. They both have construction or construction development background. And also our partner Kirsan is on Spain market. We use Kirsan services to do the construction works, and we have local people there that have experience more than 5 years in that field. So they have the connections and the understanding of that market.
Yeah.
But the main difference here is still that we are implementing those projects ourselves. We're not financing third-party developers here, and this is the main reasons. I mean, we have more control over the project. The property is owned by us. So in overall, I say that the risk difference here is it's also not just higher interest, but it's actually a lower risk as well.
Yeah, I see. And why Spain, for example? Because you're in Estonia, so maybe it's easy to understand Latvia. It's the neighbor countries, but why Spain? Is there a specific potential that you see there?
Yes, actually, yes. I would say that, first of all, Spain was one of the countries in Europe that got hit the hardest to COVID. As the tourism is their very important source for the economy, and therefore there are a lot of opportunities on the market. A lot of properties were on sale for like 20% under the market value or even more, as the owner just had other obligations and he needed the money fast.
Yeah.
So, but in overall, the market is large. It's established market, and when the recovery started, we already saw that in Spain the recovery potential, just from not from the growth, but just from the recovery, is already quite huge. And the government there is taking steps to make the whole environment more friendly for developers, especially as they lower the taxes from 12% to 4% for new developments, for example, and so on. So in overall, especially the Valencia area is one of the regions there where, if we compare the prices with Barcelona or Madrid, it's 3 times cheaper, the real estate there, but it's still very large market, more than 1 million people living there. And there aren't that many new developments in that area. So the supply is quite low, but the demand, coming from the whole population there is quite high. So and our partner Kirsan was on that market as well. So they already have all the market knowledge, and, we can use them as the contractor to also help us to consult and implement those development projects that we have there.
No, very good. and it makes sense. I mean, okay, I've been looking at Spain as well myself back in the days. So yeah, it's a great market. But then, okay, Moldova. This was a bit interesting to me when I saw it. I was like, okay, this is a market I never heard of, or I can locate it on the map, of course, but it's okay. It never struck me as a market for real estate investing. So yeah, can you explain a bit the similar? What was the reasoning behind that? Why Moldova? What's going on there? What is the status? I've seen a lot of deals there as well present on the platform.
Yeah, we actually have quite a lot of deals from Moldova on the platform. There are currently all of them are development loans where we issue the loan to third-party developer against collateral. We work with 50% LTV, which is very secure, and we work with international experienced developer Kirsan on that market. But it's why you haven't think about it is, and probably wouldn't look into that market yourself. Is actually it's quite difficult for you for just for you or someone else to just invest into that market, into real estate. It's not a European Union country. They got their independence at the same time as Baltic countries did in 1991, but obviously their development has been a lot slower since they've been supporting Russia, and they've been sharing all the political views with Russia. But since the sanctions, Russia has lost the strategical appeal for Moldova, and Moldova is now moving towards joining the European Union. So we expect to see similar growth like we have seen in Baltic countries. There in Moldova is just around 10 years behind Baltic countries. So it's why we went there. It's the obvious reason is that to provide higher yield to our investors, more attractive projects. Because if you want to earn like 15% with 50% LTV from real estate investments, you can't find that even from the Baltics or any other established or even more established markets. The yields are a lot lower, the LTVs are lower, and so on. So if you want to find this kind of attractive investment opportunities, then you need to look into some developing markets. And we've been monitoring and researching some other developing countries as well in the past like 2-3 years already. Pretty much since the platform was launched, we already started with Georgia, but we just didn't find a good partner there to enter that market. It's also pretty attractive, and we finally pulled the trigger last summer, pretty much at the end of the spring, to enter the Moldova. And at the end of last year, there were presidential elections in Moldova. They got a new president. It's a she, and her main goal is to take Moldova to European Union. So they're now burning the bridges with Russia, and they're starting the process of being part of European Union. And the market there, like real estate prices, last May average prices were around 550 euros per square meter in the capital city Chisinau. Currently, they are around 750, 800 euros per square meter. So we already are seeing the impact from that. And we also see a lot of professional investors coming to Reinvest 24 because it's not easy to get exposure to Moldova real estate market. And Reinvest is one of the easiest ways how you can invest into that market.
So the economy was going well, and the unemployment, etc. How is that going there?
I mean, the whole economy is growing there quite rapidly. I think they had the GDP was last year was one of the highest in Europe. It was like 5.7%, I believe. But most of the Moldovan people, they work abroad, Germany, UK, some more established countries. But they send their paycheck back to home. So a lot of funds are coming from abroad, from people who work there, sending their money back to families. And also what we have noticed in the past like a year or two already, especially with when the COVID situation started, that those people working abroad, they're now coming back to Moldova and they have enough funds to buy their own real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And the government started last year also like a program to support the purchase of first home.
Yeah,
it applies to people up to 45 years old. I think they now moved it to 50 years old, the age limit, and basically the government is supporting the down payment.
Yeah.
So people are able to purchase more of their own homes, and this is the opportunity that Kirsan is seeing on that market as well. Mostly they're building residentials there.
Well, that sounds promising. It's okay. It's exciting. I mean, I think I would need to read myself to get into that, but to see if it's something for me. But it looks interesting to take these opportunities and to explore the market. Well, Tanel, I think we've come at the end of the show, and no, we want to thank you for providing us with an update on the markets in Europe, and see what's been the growth. It's great to have this view in a short half hour almost, and then as well excited for yourselves with growing in Spain and Moldova. We didn't really touch upon Latvia, but yeah, I think to me it's kind of logic. I was really more curious about Moldova and Spain. Are there other countries that you're targeting, or you're really now focusing on those 4 countries now?
No, we actually are looking to expand already this year.
Okay.
But currently a lot of markets where we would like to there are at least 2 markets right now where we would like to enter. But since they have their own crowdfunding regulations, it's a bit difficult as of now. But at the end of last year, the European Union approved crowdfunding regulations, which are now implemented by all the EU countries. We expect to see those regulations to come in force by the end of the year, and that opens the door to all the markets will have the same regulations. And if you have the license in Estonia already, you can also enter to, let's say, Portugal or Lithuania or some markets which are already regulated. And it makes the whole process a lot easier. We can use the same structure for every market, basically.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. But then maybe a last question. So what does this new regulation mean for us investors?
Well, it's obviously tailored to protect the investors.
Yeah.
I mean, right now I can see that a lot of platforms are applying for different kind of licenses, and we've been considering them as some of them as ourselves as well. But in most cases, as they're not tailored or made really with the purpose, they're not specially made for crowdfunding. They don't really give much of a benefits to the investors. It's rather just a marketing tool. We're regulated. We have this license, and doesn't really I don't really see the benefits from that. But the crowdfunding regulations are tailored for crowdfunding, and there are a lot of things we don't yet know everything. The Ministry of Finance in Estonia will publish the first draft in October this year. So then we will get to know more. But the purpose of those regulations are to protect investors. And I'm pretty sure that this is what it's going to be. This is the main focus for those regulations, and it's going to open a new area for real estate crowdfunding in Europe.
Yeah. Okay. No, but that's good news. Okay. Excellent. Okay. So Tanel, thank you very much. And before we close off, let's go through the quick fire questions. So, of course, since you are a repeat guest, I will not ask the same questions. So I made some new ones for you. So, you're a young CEO. I mean, I think you're 30, 31, something like this.
I'm 30 now. Yeah, I'm turning.
Yeah, you're 30. Okay, very good. So what would you recommend to somebody how can they pursue a similar career to yours, opening their companies at a young age?
Well, I would say that, it's a good idea to work when you're young at, let's say, until 25 at least, in some companies that are very established already and, are in the industry that you're interested in. So you will get a lot of experience, because just, getting started without any experience, you will get a lot of experience on the way, of course, but you will also have a lot of failures. And, in some cases, if it's your own company, the failures can be quite costly. But you will learn the best with your own failures, obviously. But what I would recommend is to, take a couple of years at least to work in some established companies that are in that industry that you're interested in, and you will have a lot better chances to succeed.
Okay, very good tip. And then second one is, do you have a quote that inspires you, or a quote that you want to share?
Yeah, I actually have my all-time favorite. I think about it a lot. It's the problem is not the problem. The problem is your attitude towards the problem. And it makes me always the feeling that it really depends on how you react on the problems. Like, are you just going to be focusing on the issue, or are you going to be able to find solutions, rather than just like keeping yourself down because of that problem? So if your attitude is right, then there are no problems really.
Yeah. Okay. No, very good. It's a nice quote. Does it come from somebody we know, or is it something that is in the common, wisdom area?
Well, it's actually, I believe that it's pretty funny, but I believe that it's Jack Sparrow from the Caribbean Pirates who said that. And but I'm not 100% sure here. I just think that maybe someone else said it before, but he said it as well.
He has a lot of wise quotes, actually. I really like.
Yeah, it is. I mean, like, yeah, his attitude was maybe a bit extreme, but overall, he was, eating problems for breakfast.
Yeah, very good. And then a last question: you have 100 euros. What should one do with it?
If you are,
it's very large, huh?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If it doesn't really matter if you're young or old, I would recommend to if you, especially in the time of lockdown, you don't really have much entertainment, or maybe you have some extra spare time as well to learn some new skill, for example. And I would recommend to go to Udemy. It's a platform where you can you spend that 100 euros quite well learning some new skills. There are different tutorials and guides that are made by very experienced people on different fields, and just learn something new. And I would recommend to look into something related to technology, or websites or internet, or that area.
Okay, yeah, very good, excellent tip. And then Tanel, so the people, of course, the listeners can find you at reinvest24.com. Where else are you on social media, etc.? Can you share your where they can find you?
We are very active on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn as well. We have a Telegram group chat where time to time I'm answering the questions as well. So if you want to follow the whole process and get the latest updates and things, maybe ask some questions as well if you have any, then those channels. And also we are active on YouTube, so we are making quite a lot of videos. Mostly it's me on those videos. One of the purposes is to educate investors, and the second is I usually go on the construction sites or our properties to give our investors an overview how things are going, and what potential we see on all those properties. So YouTube channel is something that you should subscribe to as well.
Okay, excellent. I will link it all up in the show notes so the listeners can find it. And Tanel, thank you once again. It was a pleasure again to have you on.
Yep, thank you, Jonathan. It's always great to chat with you, and I hope we can do a similar follow-up in some time in future.
I hope that you enjoyed this episode and that you learned something from it. And if you found it useful, please make sure you share it with a friend, or you can also rate the show in your favorite podcast app. This will help the show to grow. So if you do so, thank you very much. And before moving on to the key takeaways for today, I wanted to mention that Reinvest24 currently has a summer campaign. They offer a cashback depending on the amount you invest. All the details are in the show notes. So if you want to participate in the markets, Spain, Latvia, Estonia, or even Moldova, maybe now is the time to consider it. since they offer this cashback, which makes your investment even more profitable. Anyway, let's move on to the key takeaways for today. Number 1, on real estate. In Estonia, in the last quarter, the transactions have picked up. The developers are confident. For the rest of Europe, it's not as enthusiastic, as booming as in Estonia, so let's see what's going on. Residential real estate is on the front line. Commercial real estate is behind. There is less hurry. Businesses have time to wait for a deal compared to people that are looking for a home, which is kind of logic. So I asked the question about offices, and Tanel believes they still present an attractive opportunity for post-COVID times. And currently, apparently in Estonia, people rent out office spaces instead of renting their rooms on Airbnb. There is potential there. Number 2, it's been a good year for crowdfunding platforms. Investors are now more educated and more cautious. They don't only chase high risk and high return promises, they understand the risks better. It's also been a purge year when we look at platforms. All platforms that did not handle the risks well, overpromised on high yields and buyback insurances, etc. as a marketing gimmick, they are now in a bad situation or vanished completely. And then a reminder from Tanel, the first rule of investors, do not lose your capital. Number 3, on the expansion of Reinvest24 in new countries. So for Spain, Reinvest24 develops the projects themselves, not via third parties, like other crowdfunding platforms in Spain. And after a tough year, the environment is pretty favorable for investing. Tax for developers is, for example, reduced from 12 to 4%, and the Valencia region seems to be an attractive region for investing. Regarding Moldova, it's a difficult market to enter for real estate investors. It is on its way to enter the EU. It's a mission of the new president that was elected in October 2020. And Tanel and his team are expecting growth, good yields, and they believe it makes for attractive investments as the economy is growing rapidly and real estate prices are increasing. Number 4, crowdfunding regulations in the EU will be enforced at the end of the year. So this will make it easier for the platforms to enter new markets, for example, and as well this will increase protection for us retail investors. And last but not least, I will end up with a quote from a very wise man. The problem is not the problem. The problem is your attitude about the problem. So that was it for today. Thank you so much for listening. It really means a lot to me. Make sure you subscribe in Apple Podcast. And of course, please do not hesitate to contact me. If you have any questions or feedback, send me an email, john@joneytalks.com, or connect through social media at Joney Talks on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And amigos, once more, thanks so much for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.